It was a bright Saturday afternoon. The sun hung lazily in the sky, casting a warm, golden glow across the busy streets of Lagos. The air was thick with the sounds of honking cars, the chatter of street vendors, and the distant rumble of buses. Among the crowd, there was one woman who stood out. Her name was Amaka, a stunning woman in her mid-30s. She was tall, elegant, and had the kind of beauty that could turn heads in any room. She worked as a successful businesswoman in one of the biggest corporations in Nigeria, but despite her wealth, she carried a sadness within her that very few could see. Amaka had everything: money, status, a beautiful home, but something was missing, something deep within her heart that she couldn't quite put into words. But that afternoon, Amaka's life was about to take an unexpected turn. As she stood in front of the window of her high-rise office building, gazing out at the sprawling city below, she received a phone call that would change everything. The voice on the other end was familiar but filled with sorrow. "Amaka," the voice said, "there's been an accident. It's Egu." Amaka's heart sank. Egu was not just her assistant. He was someone she had trusted more than anyone else. He had been by her side for years, always there when she needed help, someone who shared her dreams and fears. Egu was everything to her. He was the only person who truly understood her struggles. And now, the thought of him in an accident left a pit in her stomach. "Is he?" she started to ask, but the words stuck in her throat. "We need you here, Amaka," the voice continued, urgent. "Come quickly." Amaka's breath caught in her chest, and she hung up the phone without a word. She rushed out of her office, her heels clicking loudly against the marble floors. The elevator seemed to take forever to reach the ground floor, and as soon as the doors opened, she pushed her way through the crowd, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to get to Egu. She had to make sure he was okay. The drive to the hospital felt like a blur. Amaka couldn't focus on anything but the thought of Egu. She prayed that he would be okay, that he wasn't seriously hurt, that this was just some kind of mistake. The moment she arrived, a nurse met her at the door with a grim expression on her face. "Amaka," the nurse said softly, "I'm sorry, but we couldn't save him." Her world came crashing down. Egu, the man she trusted more than anyone else, was gone. The pain was almost unbearable. The tears that had been held back for so long flowed freely now. It didn't make sense. He couldn't be gone. Not like this, not so suddenly. But the nurse continued, "There's something strange. We think he was brought in too late. The time of death doesn't add up. His body, it wasn't just the accident." Amaka looked at the nurse, confusion clouding her grief-stricken face. What was she talking about? Was Egu's death not as simple as an accident? But the nurse didn't say anything else. She just nodded toward a hallway, as if guiding Amaka to somewhere she didn't want to go. Without thinking, Amaka walked down the narrow hallway, her mind racing. What was happening? Was there something more to this? Why was Egu's body treated differently from others? As Amaka stepped into the room where Egu's body was being kept, the air felt thick with tension. She could see his still figure covered in a white sheet, and the sight sent a chill down her spine. She could feel a heavy weight settle over her heart as she approached his body. But then something strange happened, something she couldn't explain. Just as she reached out to touch Egu's cold hand, there was a loud noise from outside the room, a voice shouting and then another, a series of voices. The chaos seemed to echo through the corridors of the hospital. Amaka turned toward the door, confused, but before she could react, she saw something that made her freeze in her tracks. A homeless man, dirty and ragged, was running down the hallway toward her. His clothes were torn, his hair matted, and his face was wild with desperation. His eyes locked onto hers as if he had been searching for her. "Amaka!" he shouted, his voice hoarse. "She's not dead. She's not dead. Don't let them fool you." Amaka was too shocked to speak. She stood there, her heart pounding in her chest as the homeless man reached her. He grabbed her by the arm, pulling her away from Egu's body. She tried to resist, but there was something in the man's eyes, something frantic, something urgent. that made her feel as though she had no choice but to follow him. Who? Amaka gasped, trying to catch her breath. Who are you talking about? The man's grip tightened. Anne, the woman you thought was dead. She's alive. I saw her. She's not dead. Amaka. They're hiding her. She's being kept somewhere. You need to find her. Asterisk asterisk. The words hit Amaka like a bolt of lightning. And the woman who had once been her best friend? The woman who had disappeared years ago. No, couldn't be. Amaka felt her knees weaken as the man dragged her out of the room. You need to listen to me, the homeless man shouted as they ran through the hospital hallways. They're hiding her. Your whole life, Amaka. It's a lie. Everything you thought you knew is wrong. Amaka was too stunned to say anything. She had so many questions, so many things she couldn't understand. What did he mean? What was he talking about? Was Anne alive? Was it possible? The man stopped abruptly in the middle of the hallway, causing Amaka to almost crash into him. He turned to face her, his face pale and worn, but his eyes were full of something else. Something wild, something that made Amaka's skin crawl. Trust me, Amaka, you have no idea what's coming, but you have to trust me. Just as Amaka was about to ask him more, the hospital security guards appeared, running toward them with urgency in their steps. The man turned and ran, disappearing down the hallway as fast as he could, leaving Amaka standing there, stunned and confused. What was happening? What was she supposed to believe now? Was Egu's death just the beginning of a much bigger conspiracy? And how was Anne involved in all of this? As the guards closed in on her, Amaka was left with only one thought. What if everything she had known up until now had been a lie? And the worst part was, she didn't even know where to start looking for the truth. The chaotic events of the day seemed to swirl in Amaka's mind, making it hard for her to process anything. She stood frozen in the hallway, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of the hospital, but all she could hear was the voice of the homeless man, shouting at her, warning her. His words echoed in her ears. "And is alive. They're hiding her." The guards approached quickly, but Amaka barely registered their presence. Her thoughts were scattered, and her best friend, the woman she had once shared everything with, had disappeared years ago under mysterious circumstances. No one had ever found her. No one had ever known what happened. But now the stranger was telling her that Anne was alive? Could it be possible? Amaka's mind raced as the guards reached her. "Ma'am, are you okay?" one of the guards asked, concern in his voice. Amaka blinked, her focus shifting back to the present. She turned to face the guards, trying to regain her composure. I don't know," she whispered, shaking her head. She wasn't sure how to explain the whirlwind of emotions that was tearing through her. "Do you need assistance?" the guard asked, eyeing her cautiously. "No, I'm fine," Amaka replied quickly, even though she didn't feel fine at all. She turned and began walking down the hall, her steps slow, her mind miles away from the hospital. Her heart was pounding in her chest. The words of the homeless man clung to her like a dark cloud. "Anne is alive." The thought seemed impossible, yet somehow, it felt like the only thing that made sense in this bizarre turn of events. She needed answers. She needed to understand what had just happened, who the man was, why he said Anne was alive, and what connection he had to the death of Egu. But for now, she had to go home. There was too much to process, and her body felt heavy with exhaustion. When Amaka finally arrived at her luxurious home, the silence felt almost suffocating. Her mansion, which had always been a sanctuary for her, now seemed cold and empty. She walked through the grand entrance, her heels clicking softly against the marble floors as she made her way to the living room. The city lights from outside cast long shadows across the room, but she didn't feel the warmth she usually found in these walls. Amaka collapsed onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. What is going on? She thought. Why would someone claim Anne was alive? She had seen the police reports. She had seen the photographs. Anne was gone. There had been no sign of her, no clues. How could anyone possibly believe she was alive? Her phone buzzed, interrupting her spiraling thoughts. She glanced at the screen, but it wasn't a call she expected. The message was from Chidinma, her childhood friend and a fellow businesswoman. Amaka, I need to talk to you. There's something I need to share. Something I found out that might change everything. Amaka stared at the message, unsure of how to respond. What could Chidinma have possibly discovered that was so urgent? After a long moment, Amaka typed back, her fingers shaking slightly. What is it? What did you find? Chidinma's reply came quickly, almost too quickly. Can you meet me? I can't explain over text. It's about Egu. Something I uncovered. Something I think you need to know. Amaka's heart skipped a beat. Egu. She had just lost him. And now Chidinma was saying she had uncovered something about him? Was it connected to Anne? Was Egu's death not an accident at all? Amaka wasn't sure what to believe anymore, but she knew one thing. She needed to hear what Chidinma had to say. She quickly called Chidinma, her voice barely a whisper as she said, I'll be there in 30 minutes. Amaka's mind raced as she drove through the streets of Lagos, her thoughts on the road ahead. The night seemed to stretch on forever. The headlights of passing cars blurred into streaks of light, but Amaka didn't notice. She wasn't thinking about the road or the destination. She was thinking about the conversation she was about to have with Chidinma, the secrets that might be revealed, and the shocking possibility that Egu's death wasn't what it seemed. When Amaka finally arrived at Chidinma's apartment, the door swung open almost immediately, revealing her friend. Chidinma's eyes were wide with concern, and there was a tension in the air as she stepped aside to let Amaka in. Amaka, I know this is going to sound crazy, but hear me out, Chidinma said, her voice low and serious. Amaka sat down, her body tense. What is it, Chidinma? What have you found? Chidinma took a deep breath before she spoke. It's about Egu. There's something you don't know. Something he was involved in. Something he was hiding. Asterisk. Amaka's heart pounded. What are you talking about? What was he hiding? Chidinma hesitated for a moment before continuing. I've been doing some digging. Egu wasn't just your assistant. He was involved in something big, something dangerous. I think he might have known where and was all along. Amaka's breath caught in her throat. Anne? How could Egu have known? Chidinma nodded, her eyes darkening. I don't have all the details, but I found evidence that he was involved with a group. A group that may have been hiding, and for years. They were using him, Amaka. He was trying to protect her, but I think they found out he was trying to help her escape. Amaka's world seemed to spin. Could it be true? Could Egu have been hiding and all this time, and was he killed because of it? Before Amaka could ask another question, the sound of a car screeching to a halt outside interrupted them. Both women jumped to their feet, exchanging a worried glance. What was that? Amaka whispered. Chidinma's face went pale. I don't know, but I think we're not the only ones looking for answers. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. The hairs on the back of Amaka's neck stood up. Something wasn't right. Her heart raced as she walked cautiously toward the door. Amaka's hand hovered over the doorknob, her heart pounding in her chest. The knock came again, louder this time, followed by a low, unsettling voice on the other side. Open up, Amaka. We need to talk. The voice was unfamiliar, but there was something in its tone that made Amaka's skin crawl. Chidinma was already looking at her with wide eyes, silently urging her not to open the door. But Amaka knew there was no turning back now. Whatever this was, whatever was happening, it was connected to the mystery surrounding Egu and Anne, and she had to get to the bottom of it. Without saying a word, Amaka slowly turned the doorknob and opened the door just a crack. The figure standing outside was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothes, his face obscured by a cap pulled low over his eyes. He looked like someone used to being in the shadows, someone who didn't want to be recognized. Who are you? Amaka demanded, her voice shaking with both fear and anger. What do you want from me? The man stepped forward slightly, his presence almost overwhelming. We need to talk about Egu, Amaka. We know you've been asking questions. Amaka's breath caught in her throat. How did he know? What do you know about Egu? She demanded, standing her ground despite the unease creeping up her spine. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced over his shoulder, as though checking for anyone who might be watching. Then he turned back to her, his eyes cold and calculating. You don't want to get involved in this, Amaka. You're in over your head. I want to know the truth, Amaka snapped, stepping closer to him, her anger rising. What happened to Egu? And where is Anne? The man's gaze flickered for a moment, and in that split second, Amaka saw something. Something that made her stomach twist. It wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It was a warning. The man knew something that could destroy everything she thought she knew. I can't tell you everything right now, the man said, his voice dropping to a low growl. But I can show you. He stepped back and reached into his jacket, pulling out an envelope. He held it out to her, and for a moment, Amaka hesitated. Was this a trap? Was this just another game in the web of lies she'd been caught in? But her curiosity, and the need for answers, was stronger than her fear. Without thinking, she snatched the envelope from his hand. The man gave her a sharp nod before turning to leave, disappearing into the night before she could say another word. Amaka stood in the doorway, staring at the envelope in her hand. It was thick, sealed with a dark wax, and weighed heavy with the promise of secrets. Chidinma was still behind her, watching with wide eyes, but Amaka was too focused on the letter to notice. What is it? Chidinma asked, her voice barely a whisper. Amaka didn't answer at first. She was too scared to even breathe, let alone open the envelope. But she knew she had to. She needed to know what was inside. With trembling hands, she broke the seal and unfolded the letter. The words were simple, typed in bold letters. You want to know the truth? Find the place where Egu's life ended. You'll find Anne there. But be careful. Some truths are better left buried. Amaka's mind went blank. Find the place where Egu's life ended. What did that mean? Was the place where Egu had died important? Was it connected to and somehow? Before she could make sense of the letter, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. It was a private number. The same kind of number that had called her earlier. Her heart skipped a beat. She answered, her voice barely above a whisper. Hello. A distorted voice crackled through the phone. Amaka, you need to listen to me. You're asking the wrong questions. Egu's death wasn't an accident. It was a warning. A warning for you. Who is this? Amaka demanded, her pulse quickening. It doesn't matter. What matters is this. There are people out there who want to make sure you never find out the truth. You're digging too deep, Amaka. Amaka could hear the desperation in the voice, but she wasn't scared. She was determined. What truth? What do you know about Egu? About Anne? The voice on the phone side. I can't say much more. They'll know I talked. Just go to Egu's apartment. You'll find more answers there. But you'll also find danger. Don't say I didn't warn you. The line went dead before Amaka could respond. Her heart was racing, and her mind was spinning. Egu's apartment? But what did it mean? Why would there be answers there? She had so many questions, but now there was one thing she knew for sure. She had to go. She had to find out everything. Amaka turned to Chidinma, her face pale with shock. I have to go to Egu's apartment. He left something behind. Chidinma's face filled with worry. Amaka, are you sure? This is dangerous. Whoever is involved in this isn't playing around. Amaka nodded. I have to do this, Chidinma. I need to know the truth. For Egu. For Anne. Chidinma stood silent for a moment, then nodded. I'm coming with you. The drive to Egu's apartment was silent, both women lost in their own thoughts. Amaka could feel the weight of the situation pressing on her chest, but she couldn't turn back now. As they arrived at the building, Amaka's breath caught in her throat. The place looked abandoned, the lights flickering in the hallway like a ghostly warning. They made their way up to the top floor, the tension in the air thickening with every step. The door to Egu's apartment creaked open, and Amaka stepped inside, her eyes scanning the darkened room. The place was eerily quiet, but there was something strange. The furniture was overturned, books scattered on the floor, as though someone had been searching for something. Then, In the far corner of the room, something caught her eye. A small, old-fashioned safe. Amaka's heart skipped. Was this what Egu had been hiding? She rushed toward it, her hands trembling as she tried to open the safe. The combination was unknown to her, but she felt a sense of urgency. She had to open it. She needed to know what Egu had kept hidden. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway, and Amaka froze. Someone was coming. Amaka's heart raced as the footsteps grew louder. She barely had time to react before the door to Egu's apartment swung open with a loud bang, and two men stormed in. The sound of their heavy boots on the floor sent a jolt of fear straight to Amaka's core. "What are you doing here?" one of the men barked, his eyes scanning the room with a menacing glare. Amaka's breath caught in her throat as she quickly stood up from the safe, her hands instinctively lifting to cover her body. She didn't know who these men were, but it was clear that they weren't friendly. Chidinma, standing behind her, stepped forward, trying to act as if she were calm, though the tension in her voice betrayed her. "We're just looking for some answers." The man who spoke first, tall with a scruffy beard and a scar running down his face, took a step closer. His cold eyes never left Amaka. "Answers? In Egu's apartment." His voice dripped with disbelief. "You're digging in the wrong place, lady." Amaka's mind raced, trying to find a way to de-escalate the situation. She had no idea who these men were or what they were after, but one thing was certain: they had no intention of letting her leave easily. "What do you want?" Amaka asked, her voice steady despite the tension building in her chest. "Why are you here?" The other man, younger, but just as imposing, stepped forward, eyes narrowing. He crossed his arms and gave Amaka a long, measuring look. "You don't belong here. We've been watching this place for a while now, and you've already stirred things up more than you know." Chidinma, sensing the danger, whispered to Amaka, "We should leave. This isn't good." But Amaka wasn't backing down. "Who are you? Why are you following me?" she demanded again, her voice firm, though her stomach churned with anxiety. The older man with the scar laughed bitterly. "You've got more questions than you know what to do with, don't you?" He tilted his head, studying her as if sizing her up. "You really want the truth, huh? Well, you're going to have to work for it. We'll see how far you're willing to go to uncover it." Amaka's heart skipped a beat. The truth? What did he mean? What was going on? Why were these men so focused on stopping her? And what was Egu involved in? Before she could ask anything else, the younger man snapped, "Get out. Now." He made a threatening motion toward the door. Amaka hesitated, her mind struggling to find an exit plan. She was trapped in this apartment with no answers, just more questions and increasing danger. Chidinma was clearly shaken, her face pale as she looked between the two men and Amaka, but they both knew there was no way out without facing the truth. But just as Amaka opened her mouth to argue, the older man raised a hand, signaling to the younger one to stop. He turned back to Amaka, his expression unreadable. "You want the truth?" he repeated, his tone much softer now, though it still carried an edge. "Fine. But know this, you're not the first one to come looking." Amaka felt a chill run through her. "What do you mean?" The man with the scar stepped closer to her, his eyes intense. "People have tried to uncover what Egu was involved in before. He didn't just stumble into something. He was a part of something big, something powerful." "What is it?" Amaka whispered, fear and curiosity twisting inside her. "What was he involved in?" The man smiled a cold, humorless smile. "That's the question, isn't it? The kind of question that'll cost you everything to answer." He looked over his shoulder to the younger man, who gave a subtle nod in response. Amaka's heart raced, her mind spinning. She was no closer to the truth than she had been before, but now it felt like she was getting dangerously close to it. The older man turned and began walking toward the door, gesturing for Amaka and Chidinma to follow. "Come on. If you want the answers, you're going to have to follow." Amaka hesitated. Could she trust these men? Did she really want to know what they knew? But as the seconds ticked by, her need for answers overwhelmed her. Egu had been part of something dangerous, and the homeless man had warned her not to dig too deep, but it was too late for turning back now. She had already stepped into the darkness, and she couldn't stop until she found the truth. She exchanged a quick glance with Chidinma, who gave her a slight nod, though her fear was palpable. Together, they followed the man down the hallway and out of the building. The air outside was thick, and the cool night breeze did little to calm the rising sense of dread in Amaka's chest. As they reached the waiting car, the man opened the door for them, gesturing for them to get in. Amaka hesitated for only a moment before stepping inside, her heart pounding in her chest. Chidinma followed closely behind, her expression guarded. "Where are we going?" Amaka asked, her voice barely a whisper. The older man gave a low chuckle as he slid into the seat next to her. "That, Amaka, is the question of the hour." The car started moving, and as the city lights blurred past, Amaka couldn't help but wonder where this road would lead her. To the truth? To the people behind Egu's death? Or perhaps to something much darker than she had imagined? As the car sped through the streets, Amaka felt her phone buzz in her pocket. She fumbled to pull it out, praying it wasn't more bad news. But when she saw the notification, her heart skipped a beat. It was a message from an unknown number. "I know what you're about to find. Get out now. They're coming for you." Amaka's stomach dropped. Who could have sent this? And what did they know? Before she could process the message, the car screeched to a halt, throwing her against the seat. Chidinma gasped in surprise, and Amaka's eyes widened in shock. The older man turned to her with a grim expression. "They're already here." The car door was thrown open, and in the next moment, armed men flooded the street, surrounding the vehicle. Amaka's heart pounded as she realized one terrifying truth. This was just the beginning.
Hey, everyone. If you enjoy the videos here on Lanky Space, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Your support means everything. It's the only way this channel can grow and keep bringing you more amazing content. Every click, comment, and share truly makes a difference. Thank you for being part of the Lanky Space family.
Their footsteps echoing ominously in the quiet of the night. Amaka's heart pounded in her chest as the car doors were slammed open. She could see their cold, calculating eyes from the rearview mirror, their hands gripping the weapons they held. The world outside the car seemed to move in slow motion, and for a brief moment, Amaka felt trapped in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. "Out of the car, now!" One of the men barked, his voice sharp, cutting through the air like a blade. Chidinma's hand instinctively gripped Amaka's, and Amaka could feel the panic in her friend's touch. This wasn't supposed to happen. They were supposed to get answers. They were supposed to find out the truth. But now they were being forced into something far more dangerous. "What do you want from us?" Amaka demanded, trying to keep her voice steady, though she could feel the tremor beneath the words. The older man in the front seat turned to her, his face pale but calm. "Stay calm, Amaka. Don't make this worse than it needs to be." Before Amaka could react, the car door was wrenched open, and a strong hand pulled her out roughly. She stumbled, but she managed to catch her balance, her eyes locking with the cold gaze of the man who had yanked her from the car. His face was hard, his expression unreadable. "Move!" The command was simple, but the threat was clear. Amaka's pulse raced as they began walking down a dark alley, the men closing in around them, their shadows stretching long against the walls. Her mind was a swirl of confusion and fear. Who were these men? Why were they so determined to stop her from finding out the truth? Chidinma, though clearly frightened, managed to keep up. She looked at Amaka, her expression a mixture of concern and confusion. "Amaka, what's going on? Who are these people?" Amaka's throat tightened. She didn't have the answers. All she had were more questions. She wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but she knew that wouldn't help now. She had to stay focused. They reached an old warehouse, tucked away in the corner of the city, far from the prying eyes of the public. The men ushered them inside, and Amaka felt a shiver run down her spine as she stepped into the dark, dimly lit interior. The air was thick with dust, and the smell of old machinery and decay filled her nostrils. felt like a place that had long been forgotten by time. The older man who had been guiding them stepped forward, his expression grim. "Sit down. We'll talk." Amaka and Chidinma reluctantly sat on a pair of wooden crates, their hands trembling as they tried to process everything that had just happened. They had been dragged into something far bigger than they had anticipated. The older man leaned against a rusty pipe, his arms crossed, watching them with a calculating gaze. "You've been asking too many questions, Amaka." His voice was cold, almost detached. "You were right to dig into Egu's past, but you're digging into something that goes much deeper than you think." "What do you mean?" Amaka's voice was sharp, desperate for answers. "Who are you? What is going on? What does Egu have to do with all of this?" The man remained silent for a moment, his gaze flickering to the shadows in the corner of the room. Egu was part of a much bigger operation. He was working with a group of powerful people who don't want to be found. He wasn't just helping Amaka. He was trying to get her out of something dangerous, something she got mixed up in a long time ago. Amaka's heart raced as the pieces of the puzzle slowly started to fit together. Egu hadn't just been a loyal assistant. He had been involved in something much darker, something he had been keeping from her. But why? Why hadn't he told her? Why had he kept her in the dark? Egu tried to leave. The man continued, his voice growing colder. "But when you try to walk away from people like this, they don't let you." Egu knew too much. He was a liability, and that's why they killed him. Chidinma gasped, her face pale as she turned to Amaka. "Egu? They killed him?" Amaka could barely breathe. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Egu had been murdered. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't just a random tragedy. It was a calculated decision by the very people he had been working for. And now they were coming for her too. "And Anne?" Amaka whispered, her voice shaking. "What happened to Anne? Is she really alive?" The older man's expression darkened. "Anne got mixed up with the wrong people a long time ago. Egu was trying to protect her, to help her escape. But she's caught in something much bigger than she realizes. And now, she's hiding, somewhere no one can find her. But the people who want her gone, they're still looking for her." Amaka's thoughts raced. And wasn't dead. She hadn't disappeared. She was alive, hiding, and being hunted by the same people who had killed Egu. "Where is she?" Amaka's voice was desperate now. "Where is Anne? I need to find her." The man shook his head, his expression hardening. "You're not ready for that yet, Amaka. You're playing with fire. Anne is a pawn in a much bigger game. If you're not careful, you'll end up just like Egu." Chidinma's voice broke through the tension. "But we can't just leave her out there. She's our friend, Amaka. We need to help her." The man's gaze softened, but only for a moment. "I understand. But understand this, there are eyes everywhere. You don't know who you're dealing with. They're powerful, and they'll stop at nothing to keep their secrets safe." Amaka clenched her fists, determination flashing in her eyes. She couldn't back down now. Egu's death had been a warning, but it was also a call to action. She couldn't let them get away with this. Not when it meant Anne's life was at stake. "I don't care. I'm going after her, and I'm going to find the truth," Amaka said, her voice fierce. The older man watched her for a long moment before he sighed. "Then you better be ready, Amaka, because once you start down this path, there's no turning back." As the tension in the room thickened, Amaka knew one thing for sure. The game was on, and she was ready to play.